On this episode, we're joined by Steph, who co-hosts the Creepy Vibes Only podcast based out of Ontario, Canada. Steph has a very strong connection to the paranormal, and she shares her own stories of growing up around ghosts and other strange phenomenon. We also talk about cryptids, the legendary Hatman, flat earthers, and we even review a very controversial video about a Christian pastor who wants to destroy the most evil thing in the world, Twilight and Harry Potter. So sit back and join us as we get our creepy vibe on. All right, and welcome to the Speaker Door. With us is Steph with the Creepy Vibes Only podcast.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you.
So, start off, what made you start your podcast, and what is your main center of your podcast? Like, what's mainly about?
Yeah. So Creepy Vibes Only is a horror comedy podcast where we cover basically anything and everything creepy. We're brainstorming why, what to do. We didn't want to tie ourselves down to paranormal only. So an episode could be about ghosts, and the next could be creepy video games. As long as it's creepy, that it passes.
Mm-hmm.
And I usually co-host my podcast with my friend Emma, and it basically came about that she had called me one night and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm going to start a podcast with her other friend," and I was like, no. We're going to do a podcast. It will be with me. So they had a name and they had a plan, and I just fully took over. Was listen, you can do it with him, but we're doing this. Fully took over, and then how Creepy Vibes Only came to life, and how we've been doing for close to a year now.
Oh wow.
So it's been quite a ride. But that's basically, I just fully jealous, was no, you can't do that with anybody else but me. So I took over her plans, and here we are.
I like how you fully admit you're it was jealousy.
100%. And she's like, "I'm doing this with so-and-so." I was like, no, that's not cool. You're doing it with me.
Well, sorry to disappoint that person, but
well, our startup
plan. So, maybe one day.
Well, ours started with a random Facebook post where one of my friends was asking about creepy stuff, and I was talking about something, and I was like, man, I feel like I could just fill a whole book about this shit. And my friend was like, I would love to listen to you talk about weird shit. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll do that. And I hit up two of my friends, and Ashley was the first one to respond because I hit up her and one of my other friends, and she responded immediately. I was like, okay, let's do this. So we just kind of took it off from there.
I've been wanting to do a podcast for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to start one several years ago with 3 of my other friends, but apparently I was the only one that was legitimately serious about it. So
yeah,
it never happened.
Because it still takes some amount of work, right?
Right. You
can talk about it, and people are sure, I'd love to, but then when you think of researching, editing, finding time to record, it's an investment in a way.
Especially some of the stuff that we have covered. I mean, we've covered some pretty weird.
My dog is scratching the carpet right now.
Oh, it's fine.
Sorry.
Yeah, we've covered some crazy weird stuff too. So it's there's times where I was doing research at 3 a.m. and I'd stop.
Yeah.
It's some of the crazy stuff I was coming across, and heavy weird things. Or remember the episode we did on hauntings that took a lot of research to do.
Mm-hmm. No, I think there's 1 or 2 stories that at one point I was yeah, no, that's too creepy for me. I don't want to bring this energy in my house, but it's okay.
Right.
We will not touch it.
Oh, I'm it's cursed or it's haunted. Here, let's bring it on. Let's talk about it.
Except for when we find somebody else to do it for us.
Well, right now I have all the haunted stuff in my house. So
we had a friend that
Emma
we got a haunted doll, and we made him take it home because we didn't want
to.
Yeah. Emma once, so she the pairing between me and her, she's more of the skeptic of the duo, and I'm the full believer. I've had so many occurrences. My dog's pissed off now.
Hey, dog.
So much. So she had done this one episode on demons, and then she mentioned Zozo, and I was like, shut it down. I'm don't say his name. No. And so we started calling him 2020, but you could just see her be in the pockets, be stop it right now. We can't do this. Don't bring this here. And I was had my crystal sage everywhere. I was no.
No, not in my house.
It's just I don't believe it. I'm go to her. This is her address. Go to her. She doesn't believe in you.
I would say both of us are pretty much believers in a lot of things.
I will say if one of us though was more skeptical than the other, it would probably be me. Because there's a certain degree of things that I'm very like science. I'm more like you scientifically, there's scientific evidence that could disprove this. So I'm not saying it's not true, but I'm not 110% convinced.
So what?
When I do my stories, I like to like. I start off. I'm like, this is the boarding reason why this could be this. And I'm like, scientifically, you know, like I did the Alaskan Triangle, and I was like, well, according to science, they could just be lost in Alaska, but that's boring. So let's focus on the aliens. So
right. Like that's my thing too. I'm like, it's if there's scientific, like for example, one big thing that like supernatural that like a lot of people are into, they're like the Bermuda Triangle, and it's like scientifically like that's kind of been debunked, and I'm kind of on the side of science there as much as I want to believe it's supernatural. I'm like, it's kind of been debunked at this point. So
I think there's weird stuff with the Bermuda Triangle, but I think it's more so just like the way the Earth's like magnetic system is, and that's what creates that weird whatever area. It's not like it's some weird cursed supernatural
which is
thing.
Essentially what the science has debunked. Is it's
just like the magnets of like the poles create a vortex, and
it creates like a lot of massive storms and things of that nature, a lot of weather flukes, and they're like, it's not, you know, it's not unusual that a plane could go down in a certain spot and then you not actually find it there, because it wouldn't be.
So what made you get into like how long you've been, like you've probably been into like creepy stuff your entire life, I'm guessing.
Were you born that way?
So I come from a family that we all have some, like a lot of experiences and some types of like abilities, if you want to call those. So like ghosts have been in my life forever. I remember my childhood home, we had like 3 resident ghosts, and it took me until like I was a teenager to realize that it was ghosts. Because like, you know, like my mom said she saw them all the time. I was like, oh, like the lady sitting on the couch, or this guy's going to like our crawl space, which was like our toy room. And we'd always talk about him because we could see them. And mom was just like, yeah, like I know, and like wouldn't really bring attention to it until later on when she started talking about like she sees a lot. And that's when like it clicked that it was ghosts. So then like delving more into that, like I'm more, so my mom and my sister, they see things a lot. My sister tends to just doesn't want to talk about it. Whereas for me, it's more I hear a lot, and my like some premonitions, just like the sense of like when I know something, but I don't know how I know it, and very instinctual. So since I kind of dug into that, I had seen some psychics and then confirmed a lot of things. And being a teenager, like I got more and more experiences. So once I went through a few scary like ghost encounters, that's when I was like, okay, let's research this, let's look into it. And then I just kind of, it's just like a normal part of life. So I was like, might as well just like keep the creepy going.
Right.
But I feel like that's the case sometimes too, when you have, you know, when you have something like that, where you have, you know, an ability, so to speak. Where it's like almost like you have to, like with you're learning an instrument, you practice. It's almost like the more you use it, the more it becomes apparent to you. I would say that's in my case as well. Like, it's just like if you ignore it and you don't utilize it, nothing, you know, it's probably gonna become very numbed and dull. And I found that the more I open up to it and the more I utilize it, then the more I'm like aware of like, oh shit, that was creepy.
And like it's not like they're going away, so might as well, like it just got less scary the more I got into it. So for me that was I agree with that. It was always there, so knowing that like that weird voice is not actually someone that broke into my house, it's kind of more, it's just I'd rather it be a ghost than like a dude waiting to murder me.
Right. No, I feel that. I feel like when you first like get into it and you don't understand what it is a little scary. You're like, what is happening? But yeah, then it's like it just becomes like it's like another sense. You're like, I can smell things, I can taste things, I can hear random stuff sometimes. Feel random things sometimes, and it's whatever. I think that's about where I'm at too.
So you can hear, can you see, or like do you both kind of sense like you have some weird
You go first.
I can't really, I've never really seen anything, but I'm not gonna say that I can't, because I don't think I've really ever been in a situation where, to my knowledge, I haven't. Maybe I have, but I wouldn't be surprised if I did see something. I can definitely hear and feel things though.
Okay.
So that's fun.
Yeah.
I actually recently discovered, maybe like a year ago, that I could hear stuff as well as feel
Okay.
it. So when I discovered I could hear stuff, that was a very, very unusual and interesting time in my life.
You always remember your first time.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when it's unexplained noises in one part of your house only. Still the weird things I hear in my bedroom at night.
Yeah.
I hear it's like only in my bedroom, and it sounds like, I talk about it in another episode, but it sounds like somebody has like an oldies radio with like 40s or 50s music turned down, and it's like, when the radio's turned down low enough that you can hear the music and you can hear the people singing, but you can't make out what they're saying.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it sounds like, because they'll be singing and it's like there's a song, and then you hear like an announcer voice, and it's like a song, and then it changes to another song. And I don't to this day know what it is, but I've kind of just accepted that it's there.
Gross.
Yeah.
I like it when the energy is at its highest, or like when I know like shit's not going well, I will hear it will kind of like go against my walls and just like tapping all around. And like the whole night, that's what it's going to do. My dog is so used to it that he doesn't react to it anymore. So we'll just hear tapping all the time. And I'm like, okay, stop. Like, I know there's something. Just like, let me see.
If you have to tell me something, can you wait till the morning, please?
Yeah. Like, this is me my dream. Just tell me. Like, I don't need this.
Yes.
I think for me, it's like, I have seen only a few like ghosts, like full like ghosts. Never something you can make out like, oh, this is somebody from like the like what they're wearing or anything like that. It's just you just see it. I've seen a lot of shadow people, heard a lot of voices. I've had I have a lot more of a like nightmarish story.
Yeah.
like all my shit's like all my shit sucks. Like all my stuff's like it's not like, oh yeah, there was like, I walked downstairs and this old woman was down there. It's like, no, my stuff's like something was like strangling my partner next to me, like asleep, like type shit, or like something kept waking us up like every 6 months and like jumped on our bed and like was like hanging out in the corner of the room, like, and like it was a shadow person like moving around and like shit like that. And I laugh about it too. Also, yeah, I can definitely pick up, bad juju, bad shit. It's like, I don't know. I think a lot of people can, even if they choose to ignore it. I think people can pick up if something's negative, like they walk into a space and they're like, wow, I just don't want to be here.
I think people either are in denial about it or they don't realize that's what it is.
Right.
Well, we also tend to really, just like in general, like when our instincts kick in, we kind of, or like gut feeling, we kind of just want to ignore it. But now, I'm like, listen to it. It's like, you've gotta, it tells you so much that you need to do. So I think it's just in general, people want to ignore the feelings.
Well, I think that kind of goes hand in hand too with like the fact that like there's this level, like, scientifically there's only so much that we understand. And I feel like as far as like the human brain and the way it functions, I think that kind of has to do with it. Like there's this whole other level of like, we don't fully understand it yet. No. There's parts of the brain and the way the body works that I think kind of is on par with that, as far as like this whole level of stuff that like your body's sensing and telling you this is happening or this is present. And it's really a matter of whether or not you're in touch with that or have accepted that or not.
Yeah. It's gross.
I mean,
so like, what would you say was your like first experience of like, oh shit, this was a ghost? Like, do you remember like a clear like shit?
I do.
Same here.
I do.
You always say you always forget.
I was at a graveyard,
Okay.
when my first one happened. It was like the middle of summer. So it was hot outside.
Yeah.
And I was there and my mom was with me and she was on the complete other side of the graveyard.
Okay.
And we were just kind of like exploring, and I was on this family plot, and it was an older burial site, and my entire body, was the temperature it should be for, about 70-80 degree weather outside. Humidity, because we're in Ohio. And um all of a sudden, I don't know, like my hands from like my wrists down just turned to like ice, just ice cold. And like I was like, it took me a second to process. I was like, this is weird. And then I was kind of like, oh, this is something. I need to leave. I feel like this is somebody telling me they want to be left alone.
Okay.
So I told, I went and found my mom. I was like, we should leave. I told her what happened. And we got in her car and we shut the doors, and she didn't even start the car yet. And the lights inside of the car, not the headlights, but the lights actually inside of the car, like the dome light and stuff, started just like flashing sporadically. And then I had nightmares for like a straight up week.
Oh my God. Gross.
Yeah, so that was my first experience. I'm sure I've had stuff before that, like I didn't realize what it was, but that's the one that really set in stone. That was like, something's going on here.
Yeah.
What about you?
So for me, it was that I was in high school, and I got home and I could hear my sister in her room kind of like getting ready and moving around. So I got home and I was like, hey, like, what are you doing? She's like, oh, I'm getting ready to go to the mall. I was like, oh, well, I don't have anything, so I'll come with you. So she's like, sure, I'll be down in 5 minutes. So I like sit, and like 5 minutes pass, and like it's just quiet, like completely quiet. So I'm like, what the hell? So I go upstairs to go check in on her. She wasn't there. So I'm like,
who did I
go
just
around
talk
and
to?
go. Like I like went through the entire house. I was alone, but it was her voice. It was her. So I just like looked at my dog. Was like, bye. I'm out of here. Went into like my car, like drove away, called my mom. I was like, let me know when you're home, because I'm not going home until somebody else is there.
Damn.
But that was like my first like hearing something, and like I was trying to like describe it, and people like believe. I'm like, no, like it was my sister. Like it was in her room, and her room is icky. Like there's always been more stuff happening in her. So I was like it mimicked her. It was her.
That's so weird, because it makes
terrifying.
you like wonder like what exactly that was.
Yeah. So it's like we had a full conversation about going to the mall and all of that. So it was like, how would the ghost know? Like it's icky.
To me, that's almost like you can almost like roll something up with like a cross-dimensional type thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like it might
something like
be
happened
like,
where you were talking to your sister in an like alternate universe.
Yeah, maybe.
That's
that's something like that.
That's
could like
what I feel like the thing I hear at night is like the music thing.
Okay.
That's what I firmly, I know obviously I can't prove that, but that's what I kind of feel like it might be, is some kind of like
a rip in time. Yeah.
Something that is like that I'm just in tune to.
See, like I am more towards like ghosts or like energy, because I often hear a lot of things, especially when I'm alone. When I'm alone, that's when it goes nuts. There's one night where there's like a bunch of like break-ins happening around my neighborhood, and my sister had gone out with her boyfriend, and she's like, listen, like if there's anything, call us and we'll come home, because my parents were gone. And I'm in my bed with my dog and we're just chilling, and then we just hear like a bunch of plates being thrown across the kitchen, and like even my dog was like, what the hell? Like he refused to go downstairs. So I call her, and like someone's in the house. So they rush home, go through the whole like, as like things are being thrown around, like I can hear the dishes breaking. Go like by the time she gets here, I go downstairs, there's nothing at all. So I was just like, and they're like looking at me, I'm like, I swear, like they could hear the panic, and then when I was calling her, she could also hear it. So they're like what, like the hell? And then recently, I think like a few days ago, I was again, and like the dogs were outside, so I was like looking at them, And then I just hear something fall, and I thought it was something outside. So I look, and then it's nothing. So I'm like, oh, like, whatever. I guess like a ghost decided to throw something else again. And then I hear some like stuff falling in the basement, and then like there's a point where like it's getting dangerous. I'm so used to it because then I could hear shuffling and I could hear pants swishing. So I was like, holy shit, someone broke into the house, and I'm just here being like, oh, it's a ghost, it's fine. So like I kept, I like make sure the dogs are okay. I run downstairs and like go through the whole basement with like 911 dialed to ready to press, and there's nothing. So like there's always those like experiences when you're like just someone's like fucking with me and just like throwing shit around, being like, yeah, party, like you're scared. So that's like I'm always hearing stuff, or like people calling my name or people talking, and
I think that's so funny you mentioned the breaking in the house thing, because that's one of like my like it's not like a huge fear, but that's always like a thing that's in the back of my head that always like kind of bothers me, is like one of these days like somebody is going to break in my house and I'm going to have that thought. I'm like, oh, it's just I'm just hearing something and I'm not going to realize that's what it is. And
I was like full on just sitting on the couch watching Legendary, being like, yeah, let's go. And then when I hear the pants pushing, I'm like, oh shit.
Oh,
like,
you're an actual criminal. You're not a ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I feel like that. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of one day is going to happen. It's you're just going to think like, oh, I'm here, because you tell yourself like that with every little thing. You're like, I know that's what it is, and then one of these days,
I don't know.
Every time I'm home alone, it happens. There's always something. So I'm so used to it, and like if it was an actual robbery, you'd be like, this girl's like super dumb. Like she's just chilling, she's just with whatever. Me here.
She must just want us to take everything.
My my brother left a replica Excalibur sword when he moved, and it's in my apartment. And this is actually my old apartment. I have it still too, but I had it hanging on the wall, and I heard a noise downstairs, and it was like late at night, and I was home alone, and I literally grabbed it off the wall, and I was like, dead or alive, I'm gonna hit this thing, whatever it is. I'm like, if it's a ghost or a shadow person, I'm gonna swing at it. If it's a person, I'm still gonna swing at it. So I'm walking around my apartment with like this 6-foot sword, and I'm like ready to slice at anything, and there's like nobody around. I'm like,
either way, I want to be equally as scary.
Or I had a friend who woke up and saw a guy, like an old man, standing in his like bedroom, and he drop kicked it. He dropped kicked a ghost. You saw an old man, he got up and drop kicked it, and like he just landed on the ground and didn't hit a thing. He's like, I think I just drop kicked a ghost.
He's boss. Really go.
I love that was his first reaction though, like instinctually, like this is not normal. This is like, this person should not be in my house. I'm gonna gonna fuck them up.
I like saw one person in my room once, and that was like 2 weeks ago, and I just like stood there. I was like, oh fuck. But it was so weird because I was dreaming just like a normal dream, and then something in my dream, like, and I could clearly see the guy came in my face and screamed, and that scared me. So I woke up, and then he was right there, and then just disappeared the whole time. Like, and it's still dreaming. Like, what in the world? So I would have not had that reaction. Be like, let's fight. I was more like, what's happening?
Right. That's always the best too, I feel like. And I'm by the best, I mean that completely sarcastically, when like something invades your dreams and you're just like, what? Like, you've got my attention, like what's so important that, but like to me it's just like, because I love sleep, and like I get so pissed off when that happens. I'm like, couldn't this have waited till I was awake? And of course when I'm awake now, you're done.
And I was like the whole, like, because I knew I was dreaming, and then this guy is there, and I was like, why did you, like, what's happening? I'm still dreaming. What's going on?
Oh man.
Yeah.
I don't think I talked about this. Like a month ago, I was more 2 months ago at this point. I was like laying in bed, and like right before I fell asleep, there was like a 5-year-old kid.
No, you didn't. No, you've not told me. Did I tell you about this? You did not tell me this. Oh shit! Okay. 5-year-old kid. I would. Being a preschool teacher, I would remember.
So I was like in bed, and like I was falling asleep, and like right in like in that vein of like I was almost passed out, and like clear as day, as if in the room, I just hear a 5-year-old kid's like, "Hello, Jordan."
Oh, hey.
Like super loud. Like it was like sound like someone was in the room. Like not just like an audio hallucination type deal. Like normally, because I hear that, and it's like I've heard that when I'm like passing out. It's more like, okay, it's time to get to bed. I'm hearing shit now. But this was like clear as fucking day, like someone was in the room with me.
Did you answer him or you
Oh,
like,
no, I actually,
would've.
it took me about like a half a second for my brain to even realize what the hell just happened. And then like once I did, like I can turn the lights on off my phone. So I immediately turned on the lights on my phone without getting up. And I'm like looking around, freaking out, like, what the fuck? And looking at my cats and see if they heard anything, but I couldn't find my cats. So because that's usually a good gauge of like,
right.
if I'm alarmed and they're alarmed, that's bad. If I'm alarmed and they're not alarmed, then that's just me.
That's also a good gauge for me too, is like, how are my cats right now?
So yeah, sleep didn't happen that night.
Oh, that's good.
Did you answer?
Like kids
No, I
are
didn't answer.
worse.
I was
Ugh.
really pretty freaked out because I've heard voices before, like going to bed, you know, the typical thing where someone's like calling your name out and like whispering or
I had that happen, except not when I'm going to bed. Like, I'm wide awake and I just kind of brushed that off.
Yeah, it's like an audio hallucination, and supposedly sometimes it could be that, some could be a ghost, could be a dimensional, who knows. But this was weird because this was like clear as day as a kid was in the room with me, like shout, like pretty much like speaking really loud. It was fucking weird. Never had anything like that ever. I
wanted you to get up and play with it, man.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, but at the same time though, like kids are gross. They're worse because you don't know if it's like something pretending to be a kid and being
right. That's where
every time I hear like kiddie, I'm like, no, like it's not my problem. No.
And someone was like, well, maybe it was the kids outside. I was like, it was like 3 a.m. Like there's no kids outside, and it was in the room. Like it wasn't like outside someone yelling or something like that.
I hate that too. I hate when you're like talking about something that you heard and somebody always has a justification like that, and you're like, no, I can distinguish when something's outside and when it's inside, when it's in the room with me and when it's not.
Plus, like if it is a kid that was like playing outside at 3 a.m, it's still a problem that he broke into your room and like, hi, I'm here. Like, still an issue.
Okay, right?
I also live on the second floor. I also sleep on the second floor. Right. So it's like not some kids like run by the window.
Like where you live, I don't see a kid just flipping walking
into
your house.
There's only like one family right by me that has kids, and everyone else is pretty much like adults.
I just don't see that happening. Like,
and I live in a townhouse.
Where do you know your name?
I live in an apartment building either.
There's two ways in, and I don't feel like
yeah, it's so weird.
Like the front, they could like, I don't feel like anybody would come in the front because
I thought I can't
like they would get caught in the back. Well, that's.
I thought I told you this story. Apparently,
no, you didn't tell me this story.
I think I was waiting for you on the podcast, and I
like
forgot.
That's one of those situations where it's probably good you didn't answer. Now that I think about it, for the very reason you brought up stuff is like you don't know what it is, and if it's something bad and you answer it, well, then you've opened that up now. So
plus, like the fact that it knows your name and
right, that's
not. I'm trying to make it worse, but.
Yeah.
Well, in my head, I kind of chalked it up as a audio hallucination. That was my only way of like getting some kind of sleep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be able to do that. Like one a week now.
This is why I watch YouTube videos like about space going to sleep.
Same. I will sit and watch
some calming old British guy talking about black holes. Like this is how I sleep.
Yeah, I usually watch like 1 or 2 videos. I'll like do everything to get ready for bed, and then I'll lay down for the same reason, because there's that thing in my room I'm always hearing. It's just to distract me, and then I'll lay down and watch not the supernatural ones before bed, like the scientific ones before bed, and then like it kind of just puts your brain in a spot where you're just like, okay. So because you have to like wash everything out, I feel like.
So for your guys' show, what's some of the creepiest stuff you guys covered?
Or
that you've discovered or found, or is this something there's like something that blew you away? Or
we had covered the island of the dolls in Mexico.
Ooh, the
we briefly
story
talked about
behind that is like
that was
crazy.
Yeah. We had covered, I think my like favorite was Hatman. That was Hatman.
Hatman.
I thought you said Catman, and I got 2 as well, and I got like a little excited because I'm a cat lady, and I was like, Hatman.
So what is Hatman?
So Hatman is this demonic entity that is seen like throughout like ages and countries. Like everyone has seen them, but the interesting thing about this entity is that it all started pre-internet. So like some people would recount all of these stories, and then once like blogging started, and then people kind of connect the dots of like, oh shit, like I've also seen this guy. And it's basically this shadow figure that shows up in a very dark time in your life with like a top hat. Sometimes he's got some red eyes, sometimes a cape, sometimes he's like dressed normally but still with the top hat. And he will visit people at like their worst. Some people have said that like it tried to kill them. Some people have also seen this entity kind of like as foreshadowing of something's going to happen. But like everyone has an experience with them, and it's all people that aren't connected. So it's like a really cool phenomenon. I had covered that, I think, in episode 3, and that still is like my like favorite story that I've like covered.
I've never even heard of this.
So I'm gonna go ahead and be honest. While you were talking that, I googled Hatman, and just based on the images alone, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
That's super creepy.
There's a book on it. There's like somebody wrote a flipping book on it. Like
it's just huge, because the fact that it all like accounts started pre-internet, and then people were like someone had blogged. I was like reading for the story, and like, one person made a post, and someone's like, hey, like I also see them, but they're not even in the same country. And then more and more people were like, holy shit, like me too. Like it's I think it's one of the most interesting.
But I think that's to the point you made about, you know, it predating technology. I was researching and watching this thing on something you'll appreciate the other day, is the dog man. And it's the same thing they say about that. It predates any technologies. There's just sightings that go like way back, and it's like, but same situation, nobody quite knows what's going on.
Yeah,
there's just a lot of
black-eyed kids.
Yeah, it's like there's just a lot of stuff out there we don't understand. Like, you know, as humans, we want to understand everything, and we have this mindset as we're walking around in our world, that we have, you know, that we know all this stuff, and it's like we really only discovered a fraction of everything. Not just other species, just everything in general. And it's like, in the reality, like we don't know really anything.
No, not at all.
I've never heard of the Hatman before. That's interesting.
Yeah, I haven't.
Look into it. Like, don't look into it.
Don't look into it, but look into it.
Too late. I did.
Yeah.
Curiosity gets me very easily.
I've already kind of like gone past the point of like researching stuff that keeps me awake at night, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I feel like if anybody ever like hacks into like our search history, between the two of us, they're gonna be like, what the fuck is wrong with these two people?
There's one time, so I use Canva to do like my the social media posts, and there's one time I was at work and just working on the podcast. There's nothing else to do, and someone walked up behind me, and they're like, what the hell? And I think I like was doing a story on Eyeless Jack, like a creepypasta, and I was like, I'm not a serial killer, I promise. I was like, I do a podcast, and I was like showing them, I'm like, it's all creepy stuff. Like, I'm super not really normal, but kind of normal. Like, don't worry, it's okay.
That's like how I feel sometimes. Obviously, you know, I mentioned in my like day job is I'm a preschool teacher, and so like a lot of my coworkers know that I do this as well, but I don't really get into a lot of it because I'm like, I don't want to be like, you know, I'm supposed to be like happy sunshine, let's learn about stuff and talk about our feelings, but I'm like, I don't want like you guys to know all this weird stuff about me, because I feel like people have this you know, this assumption that if they find out you're into that, then you're just some kind of creepy weirdo, like you said. And it's like, I'm not, like, I don't want you to assume that, and then assume that because I'm a creepy weirdo, then I can't handle like being a teacher. Like,
so now everyone at work knows like what I do, and there's, for the longest time, like it was super like people were just not having a great time at work, and some doors kept opening and closing on their own, and everyone was like, what's going on? And I would just look at them and be like,
told you.
I think we need to cleanse the energy. So now they're used to it. Something happens, I'm like,
where I work, most people know like what I like. I'm like, whatever. I've gotten to the point where I'm just openly talking about this shit. One of the reasons why I do the show, because I just like, that's like my whole thing is like I wanted to normalize all this shit. Like, that's my big thing. I just want to normalize having these types of conversations, because
if I didn't have to deal with like parents of children, I would totally be on that same boat.
So for me, it's like some of my coworkers got to the point now where they're like looking shit up and they're like, hey, have you heard about this? I was like, no, I've never heard of that.
Yes, tell me more.
Tell me more about it.
More.
Like, and
I see an episode coming.
yeah, right. Or they'll be like looking up some like the weirdest, craziest conspiracy theories, and we'll laugh about it, and we'll go on and on about we always make jokes about flat Earth.
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorite things of all time because it's totally ludicrous. It makes absolutely no
I
sense.
know. So. I thought we were.
I'm
like,
just biting my tongue right now, like being the science person that I discussed earlier. Like that's just one of those things.
Well, that's why.
Bite my tongue.
That's why we make
can't.
fun of it. So we
I
always
can't like.
Yeah.
To me, I'm just to the point though where I'm just beyond making fun of it because I cannot like understand how you can just.
We will try to like some.
I'm just gonna stop myself.
We'll come up with the most ludicrous explanations for stuff. I'm like, well, that disproves the Earth is flat. Like,
right.
I was like, this account was making fun of like flat earthers, and someone had posted like, well, everyone around the world knows that, and this is like someone replied, they're like, do you want to say that again?
Yeah. Oh, I saw that. Yes, I've seen that post.
Yeah.
I love it every time. I'm like, yes.
I think the main people behind the flat Earth are all in on the joke, but then there's people who
you would hold so.
I think a lot of
really
them,
hold so.
I think a lot of them are, especially the ones who do like a lot of the social media stuff. I think a lot of them are more in on the joke, but then they get like followers who actually believe it, and then it just grows from there, and it's like become this joke that's spun out of control.
But then there's also my question that I always want to ask them is like, when you say the Earth is flat, do you think all the other planets are flat, or do you just think the other planets don't exist? Like,
they're fake.
Do you understand space?
Well, it's interesting
because I don't feel like you do.
If you're hearing them talk, it's like, especially a group of them, like there's no common like belief system.
Yeah,
like everyone believes
there's no
different
outlining
things, so.
core scientific theory that goes A, B, C,
Yeah,
D.
they don't even have an official map of the Earth, so
it's already
the flat Earth model is always different.
Yeah, it's
so
problematic.
But like, I feel like anyone that believes in paranormal stuff, we always get grouped into that, like, oh, well, you must be into conspiracy theories. I'm like, well,
right, there's a lot of assumptions made of that, like, yeah, you're a conspiracy theorist, or you believe this, or you practice this, and I'm like, well, that's not necessarily the case. Like,
so it's like whenever I had a few people who like we got not into an argument, but like heated exchange, and they're very much religious into the faith of like Christianity and all that, and I'm not. And they're like, so what? Like, you bring in the devil in your home? I'm like, well, not being Christian, I don't believe in demons. I'm like, you believe in them. So that would kind of make you, like, if you think of it, we kind of believe in the same thing. Like, you're also believing some like creepy shit. So then they just kind of look at me, they're like, well, I'm like, for me, it's negative entities. Like, that's what it is. For you, it's a demon. And like, they kind of just stop and look back, and I'm like, see, like, there's no, your view isn't everybody else's view. Like,
right. And you're also kind of indirectly making the assumption that my beliefs make me lesser of a person than you, and I think is a problem too. And I don't think people realize they're doing that, or like makes me like, you're good and I'm bad, and I'm like, if what I'm believing is different than you and it's not hurting anybody, then I feel like we just need to leave it at that.
On a negative like entity versus like a demon. Like, you have to go through steps of a like possession. I just have to make sure my space is clear. I'm done within a day.
Right.
You need an old priest, a new priest. You need a bunch of things. So I'll believe mine.
Right.
Speaking of which, we can talk about this here.
Right.
Have you seen the crazy thing with that pastor?
Oh my goodness.
There's this pastor. Oh my god, we should pull up the video. And he is like
we still quote this guy.
Yeah, he's on a war path against anything that's non-Christian.
But I feel like, I will say, before you get any further on, I feel like part of it is he knows what he's doing, and part of it's publicity.
Dude, this guy,
I just want to punch him though. Also, but I do really just want to punch him.
Like
screen share,
not just because of what he's saying, but like, if you like see the video, like even his like,
can you see that?
Yeah,
body language is annoying.
We got first and last names of 6 witches that are in our church, and you know what's strange? 3 of you are in this room right now.
I'm just gonna be over here literally sipping my tea.
What is he doing?
3 of you in the room right now. You better look in my eyeballs. We ain't afraid of you, you stinking witch. You devil-worshiping Satanist witch. We cast you out in the name of Jesus Christ. We break your spells. We break your curse. We got your first name. We got your last name. We even got an address for one of you. You so much as cough wrong, and I'll expose you in front of everybody in this tent, you stinking witch. You were sent to this church to destroy us. You were sent to this church to lure us in. You were sent to this church to cast spell. Listen, some of you been sick because you befriended that witch. 2 of you in my wife's ladies Bible study, and you know who you are, and we gonna ask you to get out, or I'll expose you in front of everybody. We got all 6 of their names. All 6 of them. 2 of them had already been confirmed before that thing ever even said it. First and last name. This chick is new to our church and don't know none of you. So you got a choice. You can leave with your spells all by yourself. Or I'll show up next Sunday with a stage full of brooms. And I'll give you one and I'll fly your tail up out of this place in the name of Jesus. But we ain't playing your spell casting, witchcraft, nonsense, sage burning games. Everybody okay? The witches are like, nope. And your little dog, too. You're out, witch.
Yeah. So this
I want to know
guy,
who he's talking about.
his name is,
Because good for them.
his name is Pastor Matt Locke. And he is somewhere in the southern states. This guy they did a massive burning for all of evil witchcraft or Satanist items such as Harry Potter and Twilight and crystals and sage and like spell books and anything that had to do with like
But
demons.
isn't that to a degree, like if you're doing a massive burning to burn something that you think is negative, isn't that essentially like you dumb fuck?
Right. So yeah, so
Lord.
this guy has been on a warpath for anything like non-Christian, total, like even like other Christians are like, dude, this guy, everybody thinks this guy's nuts, like, but he is gaining a following on social media because of his antics.
Which again, I think part of it's publicity.
Oh yeah, total
He
publicity.
knows,
Yeah, he
he's
knows
like,
it's like
Oh, the whole theatrics
there was
of it. Yeah.
there was nobody in that room. There was not one person in that room that he was talking about. He was just fear mongering.
But like that's
especially
also
the part where he's like, leave or I will denounce. I'm like, by that person leaving, they're denouncing themselves. Like, it's not what?
Right.
It's nothing to do with you. But the dangerous thing about that is like making stuff up like that and doing that in like a public place and practice is that you are going to cause tension and people are going to accuse certain people of things. And that's where the problems come, is like, now you've caused this, you've planted the seed and you caused it to grow out. And it's all this negative and hate now.
For sure. There's like 20, like as soon as people left that sermon, there's like a list of 20 people that are like, oh, he's talking about her and him.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
For
And then
sure.
it's become gossip, and then gossip turns into like the truth, quote unquote. And then there's, not to play into the humor, but there's a witch hunt.
Yep.
And
like, every time like people like fight with me on this, they're like, well, the devil. I'm like, the devil is a make-believe thing. Like, if you're saying like ghosts are make-believe, you're like, your demon isn't walking around. Like, they're the same thing. They're just approved by your religion and mine isn't. But if we think of it, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
I've tried to have this
horrible.
conversation with people
So
before,
yeah,
too.
I've found one of my friends sent this video to me. I lost it. I was laughing so hard, and also I was like, holy shit, this is also kind of terrifying at the same time. So I sent to her, and I was like, we have to talk about this on the show at some point, and like your stuff we're talking about, this is perfect.
I think we should do that guy, and we should do the Pokemon guy.
Well, we're kind of doing it right now.
Well, I mean, I think we should do like an episode, because I'll have to send you the Pokemon guy. I'm not going to turn that on because that one's a little bit longer, but he's awesome.
Have you seen the lady with the monster can?
No.
There's a lady with a monster can who says the Monster energy drink is like the drink of the devil.
Maybe
And she goes on and on about how like the symbols on the like the M is like the letter 6 in Hebrew, so it says like 666 and monster,
Oh
and it's
my
like all the
God.
stuff they're talking about. It's like such a like reaching for, hey, I'm gonna make this fit my narrative.
That's
type
essentially
deal.
what the Pokemon thing is. Like, it's
Yeah.
like you put a lot of work, and if you have to put work into making something negative or evil,
Mhm.
quote unquote, then it's, you know,
All
obviously.
those people are like that meme of the movie with like the guy in the map and the strings, and like, you know, that
That's
like,
from the
every
no,
time I
that's
see
from
those people.
Always Sunny from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
meme with that's where that meme is from. I've actually only seen a few episodes of that show, but I know that's from that show.
like every time I see those people, I'm like, that's who you are. That's what you are. Chill. No, if you have to like, no, if you have to think too much about your theory, it's clearly not working.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
The Lady of the Monster Can it's ridiculous. It's on YouTube.
I also feel bad
forget
for
what
those
it's
people, because I'm
on.
like, why can't you just calm down and enjoy life?
Yeah.
Right.
It'd be way
like-
easier.
Like,
It is.
why do you have to hate everything?
Just
This
like,
guy, I
don't
feel like,
believe in
even
ghosts,
though
you're
like
fine.
he doesn't have anybody, I don't feel like he really has anybody's name, and it's definitely publicity. I still feel bad for him, because it's like your mentality. There's clearly a lot of negativity there.
It's a 2-minute video, but it's called Monster Energy is Evil Drink.
Her expression right there in
Yeah.
the thumbnail.
It's like
And
an ultimate Karen explaining it.
Oh, Karen.
I'm trying to think if we have a lot of those. Like, I'm sure we do more in like the west of the country. I feel like since I'm in like Ottawa, we're more like open-minded.
Yeah, we're just in
Don't-
America where everything's just fucked.
I was gonna say that's the big problem. I was gonna say that's the big problem, is like mentality here is not.
It doesn't matter
laid
what side
back,
you fall on.
unfortunately.
Everything's fucked.
Yeah. I mean,
like when
obviously,
they
I
had
think
the,
over the past 2 or 3 years, we've kind of proved that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the one thing I feel like came good out of our, without getting too deep into anything, that I like tell people, I'm like, this is the one good thing that came out of our previous president, is we can no longer hide to other countries how fucked up we are. They know.
It
They
was
know.
a great
We just
show to
showed
watch.
all of
Oh,
them.
yeah.
We just showed all of them
Mm.
that were stupid and that were messed up.
I think like it's everywhere. It's just like depending how with
Yeah.
social media, like it's accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
Like this guy would have not had a huge impact pre-internet.
Right.
That's
would've been,
true.
like,
That's
in a-
true. He would have, it's like nobody would have cared. Nobody would have,
Yeah.
I mean, you might have gotten a reaction out of that specific church, and that buzz maybe
Mhm.
would have lasted you a few weeks, but then it would have
Mhm.
been nothing.
Mhm.
Nobody would have cared. And
But
that's
like,
where
I
I
don't
feel
get
like,
the burning of books.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
He
don't.
called for the burning of books. I'm trying to find his post actually.
Okay, so I'm like, I don't think there's any situation where you should do that. You
No,
should
because
not be
like
burning
the author
books.
got the money anyways. You obviously bought it.
Right.
So that person gained, and then you're going to burn it. Like, you're the one losing. You lost money, now you're losing a book.
Right. And also, like, books, regardless of what's the context, like, that's a form of physical knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very important.
Oh, Greg Locke is his name.
Oh, Greg Locke. But that's very important to our world, whether that's, you know,
Mhm.
it's a record, even if it's fiction, nonfiction, that's a record, and it means something. And I don't feel like that should be taken lightly. And I feel like that's the other problem.
No.
When the people are out burning books, it's like you're taking that too lightly. And
Whoa, this is really long.
Oh,
I'll try to sum it up. As I mentioned this is from Pastor Greg Locke. As I mentioned during my Sunday sermon, we will be having a massive burning at the end of our Wednesday night message this week. We'll be in our continued series of deliverance from demons. We have stuff coming from all over that we will be burning. We're not playing games. Witchcraft and accursed things must go.
So by burning them, you're releasing the energy.
Yeah.
Not helpful.
yep, just was gonna say that. It's the same thing.
See, it says
That's
anything
what we do.
Anything tied to the Masonic Lodge needs to be destroyed. Its satanic cult is no matter where your master Mason fish frying grandfather told you. Bring all your Harry Potter stuff. Laugh all you will, haters. I don't care. It's witchcraft 100%. All your Twilight books, Twilight's in quotations, and movies. That mess is full of spells, demonism, shape-shifting, and occultism. Bring tarot cards, Ouija boards, healing crystals, idol statues, spell books, and everything else tied to the occult. It's got to go. If you think we're crazy, then scroll on. We're exposing the kingdom of darkness for what it is.
Stop. But that's like,
It's time for people to be delivered.
it's but too though, like
And then there's
the
a whole other
assumption
paragraph of him
that like
talking.
if you believe this, then you obviously are a fan of all these other things. Like,
But like, if you have to
go
think
ahead,
about
burn
if you
Twilight.
think we're crazy,
I don't like Twilight. Go ahead, burn it. I give zero shits. I do not like it.
I don't know.
because they're being very selective. Like there's a lot more than just Harry Potter and Twilight.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's
Like, if
'cause
you're
it's
really
the-
going to rid the world, you've got a lot of burning to do. Like,
yeah, you need to do some more research because maybe you should like research
Yeah.
older.
if this guy went into my room right now, he would burn every single thing here.
Oh,
Well, he probably burned my house down.
yeah. Both our houses.
Everything that I'm like, I have that. Yes, I have that. Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
What is probably to you probably one of the most like terrifying situations that ever happened to you as far as supernatural goes? Like what's your crazy fucked up story?
So my like crazy story, and I like it's not. Ooh, okay, yeah. So I have a good one and I have a bad one. I'll start with the bad one. So I am. I'm a huge fan of the like ghost tours and all of that. So I had gone to a haunted walk of the Fort Henry in Kingston. So it was like they'd never actually seen it. There's never been one I cover it in my first episode. Worst episode I've ever done in my life. But
First episodes are always rough.
Oh, I know.
Always horrible with everything.
So I went there with my mom to do a ghost tour at night, and we're like walking into. So there's an outer fort, and then you go into a tunnel, and then there's the inner fort. And we're outside, like the river, like you can feel the wind. It's nice, it's pretty. Go in, and immediately like headache, nausea, and I'm like, oh fuck, here we go.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
those are the signs.
So we walk through, and then we get into this like wine cellar, and she explains how like people will often hear like banging in the walls, but there's actually like she said about like 10 feet or something of stone, so like the noise doesn't travel. But as she's saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, I can hear it. And she like stops and like looks at me, and she's like, and then she continues with her story, and I'm like, oh, okay. Not supposed to hear that.
I wasn't supposed to say that.
So then we keep going, and then we go into like the little tunnels up into like where they would fire the cannons. And I'm behind, and I don't know why I decided to be behind the group. But as I'm walking, like we're doing the whole thing, I'm like, okay, like this is fucked up. And as we're walking outside, I start feeling like I gotta go, like this is going to collapse on us, and I like start feeling panic and like flashes of like fighting, all of that, which was strange because there's never actually been fighting there. So second we get out of that area, I'm calm again. But then we go to the kitchen where she says it's like the most haunted, like pans will go flying and stuff, and they see this like creature thing crawling to the corners of it. And the whole time she's talking about this, I'm like I gotta go, like I'm done. Don't look, all of that.
That's the worst feeling when you're like, I gotta go.
I was like, I can't. And then my mom, she's right next to her. She's burning. She's like, oh, it's so hot in here. I'm done being in this room. And all of a sudden, it just gets ice cold all around me. And I'm like, whew, okay, something's here. And then I just feel like a hand pressing against my cheek and cupping me. And the whole time, I just like go white. My mom looks at me, and I'm like, I could feel the 5 fingers. It's gross. And so thinking I could hear a voice and like, don't turn around. Because she was like describing this creature. So as soon as she's done with her story, I just like jet out of there. I'm done. I'm gone. I've been like scratched and touched before, but never like having that like cupping and then someone talking to me. Oh, so that was like my worst ghost experience. I hated every second of it.
I think that's always the worst, to your comment on like the hand on your face, and like you can feel it physically, but you're like, it's gross when you can feel a physical touch, but you can also feel like the negative emotion there at the same time.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't like how I feel right now.
And it's like such a like invasion of like privacy. It's like in your bubble, it's talking to you, like, and there's nothing you can do. Like you just have to sit there and wait for it to be done. There's literally nothing you can do to stop it. ugh.
Yeah.
But
I
that was
have
oof.
there's like a cemetery down the road from my house, and there's like this one corner of it that I refuse to go into because anytime, like, I've not even gone to the corner. Anytime I like, the closer I get to it, it's like that feeling, that negative
Yeah.
feeling you're talking about. I just feel
Yeah.
gross, and like you're just like, it's like I have to go. So
Mhm.
somebody over there, I feel like, is just not happy.
It's like, like the second, so like the whole, like we're walking, I still the headache, the nausea. The 2nd we
Mhm.
get into the outer fort, phew, nothing.
You're
Like
fine.
I
Yeah,
was
it goes
free,
away
I was
like
good.
in the blink
Yeah.
of an eye, it's gone.
Mhm. Had I stayed in there, I was like, okay, I'm ready to go to bed. The second we got out of there, I'm like, okay, let's go for drinks. So like, I'm good. Energy's back, perfect. So like, I would say that was my worst. So then another one that I absolutely love was so I was in this like really bad relationship at one point, and we were engaged, and things like he ended up cheating, and I was like in that part of like the messy part of the breakup where like you don't really realize what's going on. Like I kind of wanted to keep going, and I was engaged. I'm like, no, like well, I won't get married, and I was holding on. And I remember having a dream one night where I like swam up to this cottage, and then the cottage was falling like in, we needed to repair it. And my grandpa, who I never actually met, he died a few years before I was born. He like walked down the stairs, and it was like, why? And I was like, I have to fix it. And he's like, there's no point, like it's not going to work. I'm like, yeah, like if I do it this way, like it'll work. And I'm like fighting with him over how to fix the roof the whole time. He's like, no, Steph, like it's not going to work, just let it go. And I was like, no, like I'm not letting go. He's like, fine, do it your way. And then he walked away, and then I woke up. So I'm telling my mom about this dream because I've only seen one picture of him. And I was like, oh, he had this hat this way, and then he did the like throwing his hands in the air, and he was standing like this. And she just stopped. She's like, that's your grandpa. Like that's how he would talk. That's how he would act. And that's when at one point I realized like he was talking about me like trying so hard about the relationship. Just kind of him saying like, you know what, move on, kiddo. Like it's done. But that was like my like best experience ever of like with a ghost.
That's awesome.
So those are my two like most intense.
That's almost like a borderline like dream walking type scenario,
Mhm.
but just with a ghost.
Mm-hmm. I was covering the story of like us at Sasquatch here or Bigfoot, and we kind of like when I was covering that story, we kind of went into like Native American folklore, and they celebrate this entity, and they explain how like it jumps in and out of like different worlds and all that. And I was like, you know what, like that's 100% it. Like for all of those cryptids, that's 100% it.
Yeah, they think it's like in some Native American cultures, it's like it's celebrated as like an actual ancient that they believe in. And I think it differs from like tribe to tribe. I've heard them say shapeshifter and skinwalker. I've heard the parallel thing. Like but I think like, if I feel like there's something said that if they hold on to it that firmly as a truth, like there's probably something there, because I mean, they tend to be very knowledgeable about nature.
Oh, they know their shit.
They know way more than we do for sure. If one of them came up to me and it was like, oh, the sky is not really blue, it's purple, I'd be like, oh, it is? Do tell.
I believe you.
Not to say that would happen and I would be but it's just like I would be like, please tell me more about this.
It was so cool when I was reading about it. They're like, they just like jump existence. Like it's you're lucky if you like get a glimpse, and that's why we don't see it.
Isn't that kind of what your brother has like said?
Yeah, he said too. My brother's all into all this crazy stuff too. So he's actually gone out with a guy who owns some land out in Northern California. Who they've actually like he's seen Bigfoot out there.
He can do the Bigfoot call.
Yeah, he can do the Bigfoot call.
And like
and we went out with him to like Bigfoot hunt, and he like taught us a bunch of like what like kind of like markings to look for in the forest, and like we learned a lot of stuff. It was a lot of fun. We didn't find Bigfoot, but like
they didn't get anything on camera, but they like got a bunch of stuff on sound though.
Yeah.
So they have like a bunch of stuff where you get to hear like things moving around the forest,
which
and
is
hear,
like I
their
feel
calls
like
and stuff like that.
Kind of par for the course is when people have evidence. There's a lot of like audio is what's generally picked up of.
So I need to find this story. I had when I did Sasquatch, there's this one guy who has some like evidence, and he has videos and like some pictures. And for the first time, I was like, you know what? Like, I believe it. Like, usually, the like videos and all that, like, you'll see someone film something like 50 feet away, and they're like, it can't, like, it has to be Sasquatch. No one is here. And I'm like, well, you're there, bud.
Well, the first footage ever documented, they've already proved scientifically that it's impossible for the physical features to be a human.
Yeah.
It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. The measurements, they're like, there's no way that could be a human body inside of a suit.
I need to find this guy's name. You like have to research him.
There's actually updated footage of that now where they've like modified it, so they've sped it up to like 4K, and then they've stabilized the images so you can actually watch it, and it looks really weird because now it's like super fluid instead of some grainy beat up
we
footage.
Watched we might actually have a DVR too on my TV, but we watched a whole thing about it, and it was very interesting the way they break it down, and then they edit the footage, and it's like, and when they explain, obviously, like, I don't have any kind of degree or science degree or anything where I can go and like use the terms to describe it, but like when they did, I'm like, this makes so much sense. And it's not like I'm sitting watching something where they're trying to justify it or make excuse or convince you. It's like they're like, no, these are the facts, this is how that works, there's no way, it's physically impossible. And I was like, that's the kind of things I like to hear. Like, that's what I want to hear. Tell me that these are the facts. And that's when I was like, okay. And I mean, I get like cryptids are very fascinating. I don't think every single one of them exists.
Flatwoods monster.
That was what I was gonna say. The Flatwoods monster. They are pretty sure that was.
Have you heard of Flatwoods monster?
No.
They are pretty sure that was a example of
hysteria.
Yes, mass hysteria is what they said it was.
You should look it up. It's the most weirdest looking like cryptid ever, but it's called the Flatwoods monster.
And it's just been chalked up to be mass hysteria.
It's kind of like, I think it's in the West Virginia area.
Yeah, like we have Ogopogo. I think
that's yes. No, I know this one.
It's kind of like the Loch Ness monster, but it's our version of it, Ogopogo. So he's in BC. But one thing with like in Canada, most of our cryptids, so there's like two camps that are like based out of like native folklore, or like I'm specifically in like Gano, so I'm in Quebec, and our folklore is very like Christian based. So like we have the loup-garou, the like a story about flying canoes. Like we have like these like stories that are so urban legendy, the way they've built it, because it's from Christianity and Catholicism, that like we don't have that many cryptids, but the ones we do have are like the Wendigos, Ogopogo, Mahaha the Tickler. Like these are all like native folklore, but yeah, our version of Loch Ness monsters.
Yeah, that's kind of an example. I mean, I feel like it's all related. With Wendigo, I was watching a show the other day where some guy was describing his whole long experience with seeing something, and he was describing it, and it first happened when he was a child, and then it happened again as an adult. He had another encounter with it, and the whole story, he's like, it attached itself to me, it was very negative, and they never straight out said it, but then when he first described his first experience with it, I'm just like sitting here on my couch going, Wendigo, 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 it's a Wendigo. Like that's what you saw. And they, I don't know if they didn't think that, I don't know if that like they didn't know about that, or like they just didn't want to straight out say it, but it was very apparent, like that is what you saw, that is what you encountered, because it was like the description was like on point as far as like the skull, the antlers, the hooves, and then like talking about it negatively, attaching on to him and trying to like influence him to do
that's exactly what you do.
And I was like, that's exactly what it does. That's what happens to you. Like, and he was, he was in the woods with his parents when he was a child, and he lived in Colorado, and they would rent a cabin out in the middle of nowhere in the mountains, and he would go hiking. And it pretty much what it sounds like as a child, he would just go hiking by himself in the woods, and it's almost like it followed him back to the cabin, and his parents left and he didn't go with them. He was supposed to, and he didn't, and he stayed home, and it tried to get into the cabin, and then he went back out as a young adult and went camping, and it came back to him. And it's like, and then when he went home, it followed him home. The energy follows him home, and he was having nightmares and all this other crazy stuff. And I'm like sitting here, and I'm like, how do you not like? Did you?
Well, so none of the
like you don't seem like you know what this is.
yeah, like if you're not within that culture, then like, okay, maybe you don't know. But then
Right.
also like from what like the research that we've done on Wendigos is if you are from a culture that believes in this, like you can't say its name. If you say its name, it's like
Oh.
confirming that it's yours. That's
Maybe
your
that's
buddy for the
why.
rest of the
Maybe
life.
that's why it
Yeah.
because it was like the name was never mentioned. So I wonder if maybe
Mhm.
that's why. Because I didn't know.
I know that about
Maybe
Wendigos
that's
either.
why he never said it is because he didn't want to claim it because he seemed like the
Yeah.
whole experience was, and understandably so, was very it was very hard for
Mhm.
that individual when he went through everything. It was like very traumatizing. So that might be it. That might be they just don't want to claim it. But I
Yeah.
think that the whole like I've researched it before in the past. And I think that whole like it's terrifying.
Yeah. Also the like culture behind like not the culture but the psychology behind it. How like it attacks like it kind of when we were covering the stories, we were going through how most of the stories like someone who goes against like the group and kind of social like distances themselves and how like a selfish decision puts somebody else on danger, then
Right.
that brings in like that whole psychology behind it. I like fascinating to me.
Yeah, and that was the thing. That's how I think it started. Is he had made plans as a child with his parents, and it was like quality family time to go do something, and he backed out and just like in his reasoning was like, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and you know, I think that's the most interesting thing about that whole thing with the Wendigo is it's like very very sneaky in the sense like it's just takes its good old time to just creep on you over time and it just builds it up until it's just, you know, in some cases they've been like influenced to murder.
Yeah. Actually, so that guy for the Sasquatch, his name is Todd Stanton. Look into it. He does the Sylvanic Bigfoot YouTube channel. I think that's how you pronounce it. But look into him. Like the pictures and the videos are incredible.
Say that name one more time for us.
Todd Stanton.
Okay.
And the YouTuber is Sylvanic Bigfoot YouTube channel.
I'm Googling Stanton Bigfoot, so I have it pulled up.
Oh, speaking of Bigfoot, there's a Bigfoot convention happening like 2 hours away from here this summer.
Really?
In Hocking Hills, there's a
which is like Hocking Hills, if no one's familiar with it.
Yeah,
is,
it's like it's the South Park of Ohio. It's
it's
like all the weird shit happens
it's
right
like
there.
There's a lot of open land and like wooded area, and a lot of people like there's cabins and stuff. Like you can go rent a cabin, or you can just go camping, or you can go hiking. But there's a lot of space. So if like there was gonna be somewhere in Ohio, you were gonna find Bigfoot, that would fucking be it.
Yeah, it's like all the weird shit that happens in Ohio happens like in Hocking Hills.
Yeah.
So of course they have a Bigfoot convention coming up.
Oh, cool. I don't think we have the only like festival I know. It's in I want to say Newfoundland, but it's called Esther Fest, and it's basically this lady. Her name was Esther Cox, and she was like terrorized her entire life by this poltergeist. And at one point, she went to prison because the poltergeist like set the barn on fire. I did a story on her. I don't remember which episode, but like insane. But since then, they celebrate her, Esther Cox. So they do Esther Fest, and like it celebrates all of the weird and all that. Like the East Coast of Canada is fully like haunted. There's the most haunted spots, but they have a festival for her every year, and I just really want to go. It sounds like a good time.
That's awesome.
I'm just like all this stuff you're telling me as I'm just like Googling and like I have like all these tabs open on my computer. I'm like, I'm gonna go back and read this later. Now, mind you, like I am home alone this weekend, so that's gonna be fun later when I try to go to bed. I was hesitant to say that because I was like hesitant to say that because I was like, I want to advertise that, but then I was like, oh yeah, by the time this airs, I won't be home alone anymore.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm home alone this weekend. Me and the cats, and maybe some ghouls later.
On that note, we want to thank Steph from the Creepy Vibes Only podcast being on the show.
Yes, thank you.
You can follow them on Twitter
for having me.
at CVO Podcast. Is that correct? Right?
Yeah.
You guys don't have a website or anything, do you?
They have a Facebook.
Not yet. I'm working on it.
Okay. And then we have
but I do have. Yeah, we have a Facebook,
Twitter,
Instagram. Yeah.
Is it all CVO Podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's studio podcast or creepy vibes only.
And I will say one thing as far as your podcast, I absolutely love like your podcast banner with like the art for it. I just think it's like simple, but it's like
Thank you.
I freaking love it.
So, and that's available on all platforms, correct?
Yeah. Okay.
So if you're
also on YouTube.
So if you want to listen to more creepy, spooky stuff, not just us, you can also listen to the Creepy Vibes Only podcast, which we highly recommend.
All right. I feel like if you're a fan of our podcast where we talk about creepy stuff in a humorous manner, then you will also enjoy this because it's
we're good.
Very similar. It's very similar. It's creepy stuff. And I recommend it, absolutely.
And of course, you can find us at thespookydoor.com.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
Of course. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate it.
And journey with us next time through the Spooky Door.